I love being a proponent for saying that like timelines don't exist. And so as quickly as you want to achieve success, you can. But the thing that has to happen first is that you have that identity shift. You start becoming the kind of person that has a seven-figure business. You're becoming the kind of person that can manage family and a business and be very present for both. You're becoming the kind of person that gives back and makes a huge impact. And I think often we get stuck in the identity of just being a small business owner and that identity of like, cool, I have my own business, but it's like you still become a prisoner of that business instead of having true freedom and abundance and all that you actually crave, the options, the choices that you truly crave. And that's why you started a business. It's so easy to get stuck in just that mentality of like, I have to do it. It's mine. It's mine. It's only can be me. And the identity shift is where you're able to have that quantum leap. The identity shift when you're like, oh, I'm actually going to operate as a CEO. What does a CEO have? A CEO makes financial and data-driven decisions. They don't make emotional decisions. A CEO has a team of leaders working for them that report to them because the CEO is the one that has to make the crucial decisions, but not the everyday decisions. And so I think that identity shift, despite what kind of business you're in, is the key that's going to allow for that quantum leap where you can, 5, 10x your company inside of a year.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Creating Powerful Impact. I'm your host, Shay Wheat, founder of Grace and Ease Productions, where we support entrepreneurs like you to profitably scale your business with events, allowing you to make sales faster with greater predictability and less team burnout. I'm excited to introduce you to our guest today, who has actually gone and scaled 2 brick and mortar chiropractic clinics to over $1 million in revenue in less than 7 years. She also coaches and trains other chiropractors and wellness experts on how to implement her methods so that they can really achieve the same level of success. And on top of that, she's also the host of the very celebrated podcast, The Wealthy Practitioner, a program that features curated interviews with other entrepreneurs and provides actionable advice to practitioners who are also building a 7-figure business. And then outside of all of that, you'll probably find her traveling or with her nose deep in a good book. Please help me welcome Stephanie to the Creating Powerful Impact stage. How are you?
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you too because you've done it brick and mortar, and
hmm
now you're also helping other chiropractors as well as other service-based professionals to grow their business. And I mean, you've done so many amazing things to create impact in the world. So first, I just want to say thank you for all the work that you're doing because I work with a couple of medical doctors, I work with a couple of chiropractors, and it's not easy. And the pay isn't always the best. And how do you set it up? And like, so all of that is amazing. But
Thank you.
I'm super curious about, and we'll get into the nitty-gritties of like business stuff and tactics, but I'm really super curious to start out with how did this commitment to helping others really build a legacy without sacrificing like all of those that they're actually building it for come from? Like, how did that all come about?
Yeah, so I'm from the Midwest originally, and I went to college in the Midwest, met my husband at chiropractic school. We decided to move out to the East Coast, and I always had this feeling inside of me that I was meant for more. So I was very excited to move out of the Midwest and just try something new after chiropractic school. And I had this feeling I was meant for more, but I didn't know how or what that looked like. I just knew that I kind of came from a background where we didn't have a lot. We had more than enough, but it wasn't this ritz and glam or like super inspiring journey that I had been on for the first part of my life. And I was like, okay, if I have the power to create my reality, which I know that I do, how big can I really dream up my life? And it started with building our first business, which was a brick and mortar chiropractic business. And then we went from 1 to 4 clinics relatively quickly. But when we were building those first 2, my husband and I were like clocking 12, 15-hour work days in our offices. We were really, really grinding it out. And we came to this point to where we were like, like, okay, it's kind of time to start a family now. Like, what are we going to do? We're both in our offices quite a bit. And I just knew no matter what, like I wanted to rewrite the story for my son. Because I came from a mom who worked really, really hard. She was gone a lot to provide for us and that sort of thing. And I was like, okay, I want to have this beautiful, abundant life, but I also don't want to spend 12 to 15 hours away from my children. And so when it came time for us to start a family, I was like, okay, we have to scale these businesses in a way that are not dependent upon us and us solely. And that really started to be our focus. And that's how we went from two to four relatively quickly. And it's also what allows us to have some of that balance, being, I like to say multi-passionate entrepreneurs building these different businesses while also having a ton of time for our family too.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the key piece is when you start out, you're growing it yourself and you're all in it and the 12, 15 hours, and then you're like, fudge, I don't do anything other than work.
Right.
Is this really the life that I want? And then because you've built it all based on you and your
Hmm.
brand identity and the face of it, how do you then transfer over to growing and scaling where it's not totally reliant upon you? And that's
Yeah.
what you've been able to do.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point. When we step into entrepreneurship, we're like, okay, let me just get to work. Let me get like a notepad and a computer and just do what I know how to do. And, you become successful doing that, but there's a whole other level that you have to dive into in order to scale that or to do it in different industries. And that really was the learning process that I went through.
Okay. And what came out of it? Was there like a process that you then go, oh, that's what it is. Let's now take it and duplicate it in all of our businesses?
Exactly. So it's something that I love to refer to as like the 3P framework. And so it's profit, people, and prosper. And so at the profit stage, the only thing you care about is getting clients, right? I don't care what kind of business you have. If you don't have people giving you money, it's not going to be a business for long. And so if we can dial in our pricing, our marketing strategy, things like that, and we can get to point to where we have profit, we can hire really high quality team, high level talent, then we can transcend to the people stage where a lot of your time and energy is still spent on growth, but you're really pouring into your people. You're mentoring your team. You're building up these people, that might not have any experience, but you're really showing them the way and how to step into that leadership role. And once you've got the systems, the operations, the team to really carry out the vision you set forth for, then you can go to prosper. And the beautiful thing about prosper stage is you get to work as little or as much as you want to. And so for some people that love work like myself, I'm probably going to work till the day I die, whether I need the money or not, because it brings me so much joy. And I'm like so passionate and excited about work and the work that I get to do and the impact that I get to have. But ultimately, it's really nice to be able to have that choice. Like, do I want to clock in 8, 10 hours today or do I not? And then the other thing at that prosper stage, when we got to that stage in the first business, we were like, okay, this is an opportunity to diversify. And so I work with a lot of entrepreneurs that get really excited about building a business and they build one and then they get distracted and they want to build a second and then they want to build a third. And it's like, okay, but do we even have appropriate profit? In the first business before we start diversifying. So that prosper stage is about truly stepping into that CEO role and then becoming a multi-passionate entrepreneur where you can have the freedom, time, and resources to go build other businesses should you choose.
I love that. If someone was like, okay, sounds amazing. Yes, sign me up, three Ps, I'm all in. How long is that going to take?
Well, the thing is it's really going to be dependent on that first stage. Like I work with some people that come in and they're profitable within the first month of opening a business. And then I work with some people that maybe they have some more mindset stuff that they have to uncover, or maybe they don't have as much support at home and they're trying to raise a family and build a business. And it's like, it kind of takes a little bit longer, but I'm a big fan and a big proponent of, creating our own destiny and that sort of thing. I know we'll chat about like your reality later and the power that you have to create it. But I'm a big fan of like, it's going to take as long as I think it's going to take. Right.
Yeah.
And so, in our first businesses, it definitely took us longer to move through the 3P framework because I didn't even know what I was doing. I had never owned a business before. But once you kind of dial in what it takes to get to that profit stage and past it, I feel like the timeline speeds up.
Yeah. Well, and do you see there's any like resistance going into the people phase?
100%. Yeah, there is so much identity wrapped up with being the one to do it all, right? And
Yeah.
there's so much identity being wrapped up, especially when working with practitioners that like I'm the doctor, I know best, and it's like, okay, sure, but there's somebody else out there that can get it 90% right as you, you know.
Yeah.
And I think there usually is a lot of resistance too, because most entrepreneurs haven't ever really focused on their leadership skill set or managing a big team, and it just can sometimes feel overwhelming. And I love to just remind people, like, if you've never managed a big team before, it's a muscle that has to be exercised. It's not like you wake up one day and you're like, oh, great, I can have difficult and hard and loving conversations. It's like, no, you have to get practice, you have to get at bats. And then it's a muscle that strengthens over time where you feel more confident in doing it. But it's never going to happen if you don't just rip off the band-aid and start hiring people so that you can really start to buy back your time so that you can continue to grow the company as well.
Yeah, well, recently we had our mutual friend Callan on for all AI things,
Oh,
how
yeah.
to utilize having those hard conversations. Where do you start and utilize AI to like give you that starting point?
Yes, I love it. Yeah, she's an
Right.
AI wizard and she definitely has helped me like just again not need as much team because I do, especially in the consulting company, I love running a lean and mean team. It's just so much fun, especially because inside of the brick and mortars, because you're delivering a service hands-on, it requires a lot of team.
Mhm.
So when I've been focused on building the online, it's been like, okay, how can we do this with a lean and mean team? And AI has definitely been a huge part of that.
Yeah, but I love it that it's like, oh, I have a resource, right? So it's like
Yes.
having a coach like you come in and be like, it's time to work on the mindset, right? And you're
Yep.
like, why is it always mindset? Every layer, every like step up, it's always a new layer of mindset.
Yes, absolutely. That's what I've realized. It doesn't matter the success that you have mastered or the levels that you've achieved. It's like you're always going to want to be coming back to your body and your mind. If you take care of those two things, like you'll be able to create whatever it is you want in the world.
Right, right. So from a chiropractic, you're more holistic, right? So
Hmm.
looking at how things are showing up physically in
Hmm.
the body, and then how's that connection into the mind space? Do you end up seeing the correlations? Have you ever looked into like Louise Hay's work, or anything
Yeah.
like that?
Yeah, so I love Louise Hayes. Yeah, inside of our offices, it's really, it's crazy once you start to study humans and the way their bodies work. And The Body Keeps the Score is another great book. It's like sometimes even the pain that we feel has nothing to do with our physical. It's emotional, it's deep rooted, it's inside of our nervous system. There's a trauma we experienced or something that happened in our past that's just causing us to have this stored tension in our body when physically it might appear that everything's fine. And so it has been fascinating. I've taken care of patients for probably 10 years at this point, and it's fascinating. The patients that respond so quickly are usually the ones that come in with the mindset of like, I know this can be fixed. But, not to go off on a tangent here about the human body, but the ones that come in and they're like, oh, I'm never going to be able to fix this. My parents had this, and they're just committed to this diagnosis are also the ones that never get better because they've already made up the decision that it's not curable.
Right. Yeah. Well, but I mean, yeah, it's a bit of a tangent, but I don't know if it is, right?
Hmm.
Because as an entrepreneur, if you don't put the mask on you, then
Hmm.
everything's going to fall apart. And if you haven't gone and achieved the profit phase and the people phase into the prosper phase, then it's going to just crumble and fall apart. So, do you see like in the profit phase as they're moving into people and prosper, is there like huge quantum leaps that need to happen, or is it just like a step-by-step type of process?
Yeah, so good question. I love being a proponent for saying that like timelines don't exist. And so as quickly as you want to achieve success, you can. But the thing that has to happen first is that you have that identity shift. You start becoming the kind of person that has a seven-figure business. You're becoming the kind of person that can manage family and a business and be very present for both. You're becoming the kind of person that gives back and makes a huge impact. And I think often we get stuck in the identity of just being a small business owner and that identity of like, cool, I have my own business, but it's like you still become a prisoner of that business instead of having true freedom and abundance and all that you actually crave, the options, the choices that you truly crave, and that's why you started a business. It's so easy to get stuck in just that mentality of like, I have to do it. It's mine. It's mine. It's only can be me. And the identity shift is where you're able to have that quantum leap. The identity shift shift when you're like, oh, I'm actually going to operate as a CEO. What does a CEO have? A CEO makes financial and data-driven decisions. They don't make emotional decisions. A CEO has a team of leaders working for them that report to them because the CEO is the one that has to make the crucial decisions, but not the everyday decisions. And so I think that identity shift, despite what kind of business you're in, is the key that's going to allow for that quantum leap where you can, 5, 10x your company inside of a year.
Yeah, I've worked with definitely entrepreneurs producing events, making gobs of money, right? I
Mhm.
mean, you've done events, you know how powerful they are, and yet still are the bottleneck
Yep.
for the company, and they can only hit a certain level. So if
hmm
somebody's like in that space, what should they be looking at? What should they be thinking about? Do they, it's like you need a mirror coach to pull it out of you and be like, y'all,
Yeah, I
put
think
this
I
up.
think the most important thing is like sitting with the idea of like what does success mean to you? And then also is there a fear of success or is there a fear of failure? Because I feel like when you're the bottleneck, there's a reason. There's a deep-rooted belief that you can't do something, right? And so sometimes for people, it's like, I can't achieve that. I can't sell out $1 million event. I can't do this, right? Whereas from others, it's like, no, they know that they can and they're scared of what's going to happen when they get there. They're scared of what it looks like to actually be that successful. Sometimes that's money mindset beliefs or, beliefs that they're going to get it and it's going to go away. But what I have found is that most often or not, there's either a fear of success or a fear of failure. And when you can get really honest with yourself and get quiet and sit down and reflect and say which one is driving me, which one feels like a trigger for me, then you can move past it. But I feel like, so often we're just so busy as entrepreneurs managing all these things that we don't actually create the space to sit down and get quiet and be like, okay, what is actually holding me back?
Yeah. Do you happen to have an example of someone you've worked with that, they went through something similar and what did they do or what actions did they take to kind of flip to the other side and what happened?
Yeah, so I had a client, I remember it was like when I used to do sales calls, I don't really do sales calls anymore, but she was stuck at like 25K a month in her business and they were just grilling me on the call. It was the most they had ever invested in a coach before, and they're just grilling me like what's the like guaranteed ROI and all of these things. And we got into working inside of her business. They were like, "Okay, let's try this for 6 months." And we just started uncovering like what is it that you're actually scared of. Like you have a beautiful business, you have a beautiful reputation in your community, things are going really well, like what is it? And there was so much fear holding her back. And when we dove into that and we were like, okay, what is it? It was really just this fear of what if it doesn't work. I think so often like we're scared to that saying, I can't think of it off the top of my head, but it's like what if it doesn't work? But it's like no, but what if it does? And what if it works out better than you could have imagined? And that's what it was for her. And so there was things that she had experienced in her career that we had to work through for sure to help release some of those limiting beliefs and those fears. But when we were able to make that identity shift, and one of the things I love to ask people is, what happens if it were to all go away tomorrow? And for a lot of people, it sends them into a spiral. If you ask me that question, I'm like, bro, if it goes away tomorrow, I'm good. I'll just build it again, because I know I have the skill sets. I know I have the personality and the work ethic and all of these things to make it happen again. So I'm not scared of losing anything. And I think when we can detach from the outcomes like that, that's when we're able to facilitate success. So for her, when we could kind of release a lot of that, she went from, doing 25K a month in her business to having $1 million business and then diversifying to 3 businesses. And it was like, who knows? Like if you just don't handle these fears or these triggers that are coming up for you, you're never going to be able to scale to where you want to go.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. She was fun to work with. And I also love those personalities where it's like people that want big lives, they want to make a big impact. I know that's what you help do too. And it's like, it's possible for everybody if you just get out of your own way and you're willing to do the inner work, which is usually the hardest. And that's why we avoid it. But when you're willing to do that, I mean, magic happens.
Right. And when you avoid it enough, it shows up in your body.
Yes, exactly. Then it starts manifesting as pain.
Exactly. So then you help them on the chiropractic side,
Exactly.
on the mental side. Oh my God. What a lovely business model that you've got them all feeding into each other.
Yes.
Well, speaking of feeding into one another, how can somebody like connect with you if they go, all right, Steph, like You're talking to my soul right now, and I think I need a kick in the pants and looking at this stuff, but I don't want to look at it. But you're probably the person that needs to help me. How can somebody reach out to you, connect with you, learn more from you?
Yeah, so I hang out on Instagram the most, so at the Wealthy Practitioner. We also have a YouTube channel that we launched in the last couple of months, just Stephanie Wigner. That'll pop right up. And then I also, if it was cool with you, wanted to give your listeners a little gift. I did a training inside of my mastermind probably a year ago called Reimagine Your Reality, and it's all about facilitating a quantum leap, the person you need to become, having those identity shifts, working through some of those money mindset beliefs. And I really talk about how my husband and I were in a position where we were kind of stuck and stagnant, really not sure what to do. And in a matter of 18 months, when we just fully committed to achieving everything we wanted, we were able to go from our first starter home to buying our $1 million dream home to not having any children to having our son and doubling our businesses inside of that time. And I think it's just a testament to what we're truly capable of. And so I would love to give that to your listeners. I'll get that over to you. And then, yeah, I love getting DMs. Like if you're listening to this, shoot me a DM on Instagram and be like, hey, I listened to you on Shay's podcast. It was so awesome. Because I just love connecting with people online, offline, everywhere.
Oh my God, that's so amazing. Thank you for that. And we will have the link to that in the show notes. So definitely pick it up. I'm excited to take a look at it myself because there's always a new level, right? It's
Exactly.
always a new level. And I mean, we're in a mastermind group together, learning from some amazing entrepreneurs, but I can always learn from others also in the group, right? It's not
Yeah.
necessarily just the one that you're going to, it's also being in that community,
That high level
a
community.
high level community. And I know your community is super high level too. I feel, and I'd love your perspective as well before we start to wrap up here. What's your take on community right now in the space, in the marketplace? And is it more than ever needed, or are you saying it's like about the same, less?
Oh no, I think it's the number one thing that's going to separate successful businesses from ones that crash and crumble because people are craving, I feel like in 2025, more realness and authenticity and vulnerability than ever before. And it's really hard to do that without community because community is able to support each other. They're able to show up for each other. They're able to be a proponent for one another, but also for you as the leader. And it's just such a beautiful thing. I like to say, and I know our mentor talks about this too, but I like to say it's not the Stephanie show. It's like the community show. Like you shouldn't want to hang out with me because I'm cool. I'm not really that cool. You should want to hang out because the people I hang out with are really cool. And so
Right.
I think you absolutely need community in your business in 2025. And also events are a beautiful way to do that. Events to get people in a room together and to really have those transformations and those breakthroughs. I think in person does that in a way that online can't.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely, wholeheartedly. I think it's the ones, like you said, that are going to focus on building community and connection and really supporting going forward are the ones that their businesses are going to thrive and really be in that
Mhm.
prosperous phase.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Last question for you. What is a takeaway or memorable note you'd like to leave our audience with today?
Ooh, I think it's that you are capable of achieving way more than you've been led to believe. I think our environments, the way that we grow up, the way that we surround ourselves with, people, it just reflects back to us what our reality is. But there's a whole other reality out there that you don't even know exist until you get exposed to it. Like you said, there's levels to business, there's levels to lifestyle, there's levels to love, there's levels to everything, right? And for a lot of us, we're only experiencing what's in our everyday life. And if you have a desire for more, you absolutely can achieve more. And it is absolutely within you to be able to do that.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you so much for being with us and joining us. I want to thank our audience for joining us on another episode of Creating Powerful Impact. I'm stoked for you just to take all of these lessons and resources, reach out to Steph, and start implementing them so that you can create even more impact in your world. Until next time, have an outstanding rest of your day. Take care. Thank you so much for listening to the Creating Powerful Impact podcast. If you are a successful coach, speaker, author, or thought leader who would like to be on this program, simply visit creatingpowerfulimpact.com/guest. If you are someone who got something out of this interview, Would you please do me a favor and share this episode on social media? Just do a quick screenshot with your phone and text it to a friend or post it on your socials. Also, if you know somebody that would be a great guest, tag them on social media to let them know about the show and include the hashtag Creating Powerful Impact. I love seeing all of your posts and great guest selections. We are regularly putting out new episodes and content. To make sure you don't miss any episodes, go ahead and subscribe. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show, and they really mean a lot to me and my team. Want to know more about us? Head on over to our website, graceandeaseproductions.com, or follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram. Just look for Grace and Ease Productions on your favorite platform. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.